So I just finished reading the Francis Sandow series by Roger Zelazny. This is the first time I'm reading this author. He's kind of a sci-fi fantasy author. He's, always in between these two different genres. And actually, this series is no different. It's a sci-fi novel, but actually fantasy also, and it deals with in alien mythology mainly, so gods and stuff like that. I didn't really connected with the series. There was some good things in the books, but I just I struggled finishing the series. Actually, I didn't just it wasn't for me, I guess, because there are some elements here and there that I liked, but for the most part, it felt as if the writer was writing the books as they were happening, meaning there was no clear plan. I might be wrong. That's just how I felt reading the books. There was no clear direction where the story was going. It's just at the end, all of a sudden, everything falls into place and there you go, you have an ending. That's just how I felt reading the books, that there was no real connection between different phases of the books. It's just, stuff was happening and that's it, which is kind of a good thing. Sometimes a story don't have to have this clear directional point or anything. It's just that in here it just felt too spread. In my opinion, the story just was too, the plot was too thin. Essentially, there was not really anything. But yeah, as I said, I really liked some things here and there. Mainly what I really enjoyed is the fact that even though we are a space species, so now we are kind of the master of the galaxy or something like this, we're still, dying quite easily by sickness or just accidents, weird accidents and stuff like that. So even if we're a space species, living is still hard and it's not getting any easier. So this is a concept that I really enjoyed, that I wish it was more developed. That being said, it's a bit weird that I'm saying this because book 2 is all about plagues and sickness, but it's just not developed in a way that I would have really enjoyed. Once again, you have this goddess and god fighting each other, and so the fight of the gods in book number 1 was really well done. I really enjoyed that last part. In book number 2, it just felt, it's not really explained. There's nothing really happening. I guess there's a lot happening, but we don't really get to see it, and it's a shame. I guess we should have seen something happens in book number 1. It was really epic, and in book number 2 it just felt short actually. But yeah, so when I finished reading book number 1, I was a bit underwhelmed by the story. I didn't really like it. I didn't really connect with anything. I still decided to go into book number 2, to give it a shot. Maybe book number 2 was going to be better, but it didn't did it for me. I don't know if it's just because it's the story, it's not his best one or anything. So I'm sorry, but yeah, if there are Zelazny fans out there, please feel free to comment. Tell me what I should read, because I don't want to hate an author or anything. I want to like what I'm reading, but yeah, I want to maybe give this author another shot, try and see if I like some of his work. I've not talked about the story though, so I'm gonna end with the story of both books. So in book number 1, we're following Francis Sandow in a POV style, so we're inside his head. He's a billionaire, and he was around in the 20th century. So the story takes place like 1,000 years in the future or something like this. But he's part of the first space exploration teams, and he was, frozen to make these huge distances and still be young. So he's still young, 1,000 years in the future. And afterwards, there's the technology is just better, so they can, still be young. If you have the money, you can still be young for quite some time and live a longer life than we're used to. So I liked that concept. I really enjoyed all of this concept, but it's just poorly kept. It's just that, I would have liked to see, like in a lot of other books, like the mental strain that you have from knowing that everybody that you knew are now dead. I would have liked to see that, but we're not. Francis Sandow is just full of himself and doesn't really care about everybody else, until he received messages, and images that people that he thought were dead might not be, and he's going to look into that. So that's mainly book number 1. And in book number 2, so it's said that it's still the Francis Sandow series, but he has a secondary role in the second book. We see him like in the last 20 pages or so of the second book, because it's more about this person who has this ability to just cure anybody of any illness. And what he does essentially is he, how can I say it? He swallows the sickness. He keeps him for himself, ingests the sickness essentially, and he needs to go, somewhere else to be alone to spread that sickness around. So if there are other living things around him, they get, contaminated by the sickness that he just got, and a lot of other sicknesses that are within him, actually. So I really enjoyed, once again, this concept. It's just poorly executed, in my opinion. I feel like it could have been more, and it's not. It's just that, and it just is. And sometimes that's a good thing. It just, here I felt like it just could have been a little bit more. And, I kind of had a hard time coming back to these books, just the way it's written. And that's mainly it, mainly the way that it's written and the way the stories are developed. I didn't really fully connected with these books, unfortunately. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching once again.